Alright, welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the lost art of honor. The lost art of honor. Now, honor is not something that's very commonplace in American culture. We tend to honor our troops and the foundation of our country. Those are very prevalent. You see that in schools every day. Kids are reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Before major sporting events, there's always the Pledge of Allegiance. And so in many ways we do honor our country, and we do remember the sacrifices that have been made in order for us to be where we are today, to be the country that we are today. And we do live in a very, very beautiful country. I love our country. And so we see that happening at a country level, but we do not see it frequently happening at a familial level. And the devil, Satan, loves to attack us by destroying and perverting the family unit. And so we see a lot of rebellion happening, which the root cause of that rebellion can be the devil, a demonic influence. Absolutely. It can also be our heart, our fallen nature as a human being. That also leads us down that path. So it can be spiritual, it can just be a human thing. But rebellion is the opposite of honor. Because when you're rebelling, you want to destroy something and take it down. And there can be good facets of rebellion, but oftentimes we lose a sense of honor and a sense of duty when we turn towards rebellion. Now, let's look at the word honor itself. And, recently I've been going to Emmaus discipleship. And it's basically a discipleship class offered within my Catholic parish. And yesterday we actually did something called Lectio Divina. And it was really powerful, actually. The thing that we did was we sat down with some scripture and we chose a particular verse. We read it, and we read it over and over again, and we sort of meditated on it. And one of the things that really stuck out to me about that was it's so counterintuitive to the busyness of American culture. It's the opposite of what we do in America. Usually we're so caught up in the busyness of our lives, making sure to get to work, making sure to take care of our responsibilities, traveling back and forth, attaining or giving ourselves to our interests and our hobbies after work, eating, showering, making sure to get in all our daily routines. And when we get caught up in the busyness of that, we often neglect taking time to be with ourselves and to think with ourselves. And I think a lot of us are even afraid to do that. And this is a huge part of honor, because honor is such a lost art, like mentioned in the beginning. And in order for us to find and regain a sense of honor, we kind of have to take a step back. We have to think about what honor is, why we should even do it in the first place, and why it's so important. So we're going to do something very similar to a Lectio Divina, and we're going to just kind of parse out the definition of honor. So the definition of honor is high respect as that shown for special merit, recognition, or esteem. So some words that stick out to me there are respect, special merit, recognition, and esteem. Now, we're going to kind of go into the basics of honor, and then we're going to go into some of the nuances a little bit later, because there are some nuances to honor, especially when it comes to something like the fifth commandment, where the fifth commandment commands us to honor our mother and our father. But a big question that opens up oftentimes is, how can I honor my mother and my father if they weren't very good to me? Like if I was in an abusive relationship with them, if we're not on speaking terms, if we have had this sort of falling out and this negative or toxic relationship, why should I even think about honor or consider honoring them when, maybe they were really bad to me and maybe they don't deserve it? So we'll kind of go into the nuances of that a little bit later on. But for the most part, I think that we see a relatively supportive generation of parents. No one's perfect. No one is going to, hit the nail on the head when it comes to parenting all the time and just be, just absolutely phenomenal and amazing. And, there are parents out there like that, but in an average case, you're not really going to see that. So generally, though, I think that in America we are seeing supportive parents who want the best for their children and who want to see them succeed. They want to see them do better than they have done, and they want to set them up for a good life. And that's generally what you see across America. And you think with all of that in mind that we might see some more honoring of parents, because there is kind of that fundamental premise there of parents wanting to see us do well in life. They may not be the best example, or that you might have some type of quarrel or something that you're battling with in terms of accepting your parents' authority. And I think that's just going to happen as a natural part of being a teenager, growing up as a young adult, growing up even in earlier stages of life as an adolescent. Because there's this natural inkling to stray away from your parents. And when it's that prevalent in society, and you see a whole bunch of other kids doing it, that are your age, then you kind of get swept off in that wave, and you get conditioned by the world to go against the honoring of your parents. And so that's a very prevalent thing as well. We have the wave of, parents generally wanting a good life for their kids. And then we also have the wave of social influence and, large masses of people who don't honor their parents, who can be disrespectful to their parents. And so we get kind of swept away in that wave. Now, it's important to understand, okay, what does honor even look like? How do we honor our parents? How do we honor people in our lives? Because it doesn't only extend to our parents. It also extends to God. It extends to our friends, people that mean a lot to us. And it extends to our parents, our family, our even younger siblings, or younger people within our family, our cousins, and anyone who's really that important to you. Now, one of the best ways to dishonor someone, not sure if that's a word, but you know what I mean, is to gossip about them behind their back. If you really want to dishonor someone, you go and talk to them behind their back to other people. You go say, hey, Becky is doing this, this, and this, and I really don't like it. And, she's this, this, and this. That's the best way to go and dishonor someone, is to talk about them behind their back. And that's not something that we want to be doing. We don't want to be talking about people behind their back. It's very disrespectful. And notice in the definition of honor, part of that is high respect. That's the first couple of words of the definition. High respect as that shown for special merit. Merit is kind of a fancy word, so we'll kind of get to the bottom of that. But a huge part of honor is showing respect. And so not only is gossiping a great way to dishonor someone, another great way to dishonor someone is to interrupt them while they're speaking. Because that's extremely disrespectful. Right? You're saying to that person, oh, my thoughts are more important than yours. I want you to stop talking, and I want you to listen to me. Because my thoughts are more important, obviously. It's very disrespectful. Just logically, and I think across the board we can all agree that interrupting someone is disrespectful. Now, obviously there's nuances to interrupting someone. If you're talking to someone and you interrupt them because you have an emergency, like, it's appropriate to interrupt them. But in general, if you're just having a casual conversation, it is not appropriate to interrupt someone while they're speaking. So that's another great way to dishonor someone. Okay, now we look at the flip of that. Right? So we have disrespect. Over here, here's a list of ways that we can disrespect. Now here's the flip side of that and how we can actually respect people. Because it's like, okay, yeah, we know these things are wrong, but like, what do we do to replace that? Because, like, what else are we going to talk about? What else are we going to do? How are we going to treat each other? It's important to understand the flip side of it so that then we can actually replace those actions that we're taking that are dishonoring, that are disrespectful, and replace them with actions that are oriented towards virtue. The virtue of honor, for example. So, we have gossiping. What would be the opposite of gossiping? Well, it would be keeping your mouth shut about other people. Unless you have something good to say. Because a good way to honor someone when you're interacting with other people, let's say it's your mom and you're talking with other people. A good way to disrespect her is to be like, oh, like, oh, da, 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 like, she's so annoying, she does this and this, and she, tells me to do this, and I don't want to do it this way, and, she gives such bad advice, or whatever the quarrel is that you might have. And then you go behind her back and you talk about her to your friends. That's very disrespectful. Just sitting there complaining and criticizing about your mother to one of your friends. That's not a way to honor her. So what do? Well, you kind of have to reconcile your relationship to your mother. And you kind of have to do this with all your relationships, actually. Is you have to kind of take a step back. And you have to, from a zoomed out perspective, look at your relationships and see, how is this person supporting me? How has this person led to blessings in my life? How has this person been a good influence on me? How has this person helped me in some way? What does he or she do for me on a consistent basis? Because that premise gives you the foundations for going out and communicating those things that that person does for you to other people. You know, like going out and interacting with your friends, like, wow, my mom, like, you know, she really loves me. She wants to take care of me. She is an amazing mother. Like, I wouldn't trade her for the world. See, if you go out there and use that language versus like, oh my gosh, my mom's this, and this, and reserve that for your conversations with your mother or just a person in general. This is all people. It's not just your mother and your father. Because you want to be a good son. You want to be a good friend. You want to be a good nephew. You want to be a good cousin. You want to be a good grandson. You want to steward or take responsibilities for these hats that you wear, that everybody wears, and you want to do it well. And if you're watching this video, that's probably what you want, is you're striving towards virtue. You want to be a more virtuous person, and you want to become a better person through that process. And so it's just like when you're on a diet. The biggest thing about doing a diet is taking out the junk from your already existing diet. You want to take the junk out so that you can replace it with good, nourishing food so that you can be a healthier person. And so it's the same thing with our spiritual and our moral health, is we need to rip out the junk in order to replace it with healthy stuff. And a big part of removing the junk is removing the temptation to indulge ourselves in the junk, right? So how do we remove the temptation of going out and dishonoring the people that we care about? How do we remove that temptation from our life? Well, we have to sit back and audit the people in our life. How do they behave? Are the people in our lives also dishonoring other people? Are they gossiping? Are they being disrespectful? Are they interrupting other people while they're speaking? We got to become really good character readers. We have to be able to see through the lens of character. We have to be able to interpret people's actions and assort them into, okay, this is this person's character. Like, this person is very disrespectful, you know, they're provocative, and so on and so forth. They might be a negative influence on me, and I should just mentally note that. You know, it doesn't mean you have to completely cut them out of your life. It might. You know, if you're really struggling with this thing, and it seems like it's an addiction that you can almost like just not let go of, then you might have to completely cut them out for at least a period of time while you kind of get on the right track. So cutting out people in our lives that are doing the things that we don't want to be doing is very important and something to consider. And then we want to look at, okay, not only the people in our life physically, but what are we watching on the screens? What are we listening, what are we flooding our ears with music, with podcasts, with all these different forms of media and content? Are we listening to people who are striving towards virtue? Are we listening to people who are good influences on us? Or the opposite? Are they not striving towards virtue? Are they disrespectful? Are they mean? Do they make fun of people? Do they gossip about people on their shows? But the core root of this, whether it's in person, whether it's on a movie, whether it's in music, whether it's on a podcast, any type of interaction that you're engaging in with other people, the core of this is being able to see. You want to be able to see with your own eyes and observe people, observe their actions, and decide for yourself, okay, is this person disrespectful? Does this person honor the people in their life? Or, is this person extremely provocative? Maybe are they always complaining? Are they always criticizing? Are they always condemning other people? Do they always kind of have are they always trying to talk over me? Does it seem like they're even listening to me when I'm talking? Or are they just like waiting to say what they want to say? Are they even engaging with me? Like, can you see it in their eyes if like they are really interested in learning about you? Are they extremely attentive and focused towards you and really curious to explore your personhood? Or are they more obsessed with themselves? These are all good questions to ask yourself. And there are things that you need to be noticing while you're going out and engaging with other people. Because we can either unconsciously get swept up in being influenced by others, or we can consciously be swept up in being influenced by others. Now what I mean by that is we can either go throughout our whole life and just kind of being pulled by other people in the direction that they're going and not really have any influence over that or control over that. And so we start to lose control and influence over our own destiny. Versus if we consciously steer that, because it's an underlying human mechanism to be influenced by other people. We observe people's behavior and we mirror them. That's a very fundamental thing. You're not going to be able to really change that. But what you can do is you can consciously and intentionally decide how you're going to be influenced by other people. And so the way you do that is by surrounding yourself with people that you want to be more like. And if you can't find any people who physically, like in person, that you want to be more like, start with the online world. The online world can be a blessing to you in that way of, hey, I really like what this podcaster does. I think that he does a great job at honoring the people in his life. Like, he just loves them and nurtures them. He prays for them. He wants to see the best for them, so on and so forth. Find someone like that. Anchor your attention towards them, because then you can watch them and then you can mirror them and you can have a conscious influence over how you're being pulled by other people. Because we're going to be pulled by other people either way. Because it's part of our nature. It's part of human behavior. We have this insatiable desire to want to fit in with the people that we like and associate with. Because being a part of a group is much safer than not being a part of a group. Okay, so that's a huge piece of what's underlying the dishonor that's occurring in our world. It's in the secular world, in the mainstream world, there's not a lot of honor happening. Okay, so let's look at a couple of other things, because we have the Pledge of Allegiance, right? We're doing that, but what is that? Why is it honoring? Because it is. I think it's a great thing. I love that we do that, because it makes us feel unified in the honoring of the sacrifices that have been made for our country. We think about the men and women in our lives and historically who fought for our country, who made it an amazing place to live and to be a part of. And how do we do that? Well, we do it through singing songs. We do it through gesture and ceremony. We take out the flag. We all stand with our hand on our heart, with our hand behind our back. Some people take off their hat. And we just look up and we stare at the flag. And we sort of, one thing that if you don't do this is just to kind of meditate on the sacrifices that have been made, the men and women that have died in order for me to be here today, watching this sporting event, being at school. Great thing to do is to actually think about what are the things that were required in order for me to be here today. Be a great way to honor someone. And it's an exceptional way to honor our soldiers in our country. But we take time out of the event to do that. We take the first 5 minutes. We take kids in school take the first couple of minutes to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And so honor, it's not that complicated. It doesn't take that much time. But it can be an extremely powerful tool. It can serve as a glue to your relationships with people. And another big piece of this, and I learned this from reading the New Testament in the Bible, Jesus always talked about doing things in secret. Doing things basically when no one else is looking. Do not be like the Pharisees and Sadducees who try to make it seem like they're so righteous and holy in public, by reciting vain prayers and saying the same words over and over again. He says that it's important for you to develop your character in secret. The things that you do when no one is looking, those are the things that matter the most. Because that's who you are. Okay, so we don't just want to be honoring people for a reward. But if you're Christian, if you're a Catholic, your reward will be great in heaven. Jesus told us that. And so that can be the source of your desire to obtain a positive reward. Is like, okay, I know that Jesus really likes when I do this. Like, he is pleased with me when I do this. And that means a lot to me. So I don't care about getting any type of recognition from anyone else for my honoring of other people. It's more so about what he thinks. Right? So we're not going out and honoring people and throwing out honor just to get their praise back. Like, we're going to go out in secret, and when we talk to our friends about the important people in our lives, we're going to honor them just because it's the right thing to do. That's it. Just because it's the right thing to do, because it is the right thing to do. That's how we show respect for the people that we care about. As we go out and honor them in public. We go out and try to build them up in public. We try to help build up their reputation in public. Which is very counterintuitive. So Jesus tells us to do these things in secret. And just for the sake of having him being pleased with us. And so that's really the most important thing to do. If you do that, you can find some type of peace and solace, because if you're not doing that, there's kind of this drudging feelings of shame and guilt that are associated with gossiping about other people and talking about other people behind their back in a disrespectful manner. Okay, so we kind of have a lot of the basics down of honoring, and kind of how society is basically steering away from small gestures of honor. We still have some small gestures like the Pledge of Allegiance and things of that nature, and those can be signs for us. They can be examples for us to lean on, to take that honor that we have and that we demonstrate for our country, and to also do that for our family. If you're having like a family event or something like that, like I always thought it'd be really cool to, this for example, you're at a family event and your grandparents show up. And it's like, okay, you got your grandparents up here and they have their children, right? Maybe they have 10 kids, and then their 10 kids have 30 grandchildren, right? Let's say you're all at a family gathering and you're all there, and then your grandparents kind of show up last. It's like, get up. You guys wouldn't be here without them. That means a lot. Here you have these two people who came together, who maybe came together in marriage, and they had kids, and their kids had kids, and now you're all here. There's this whole slew of life happening because of these two people. So get up. Go shake your grandfather's hand. Go give your grandma a hug, a kiss on the cheek. Honor them. Show them you're important to me. You mean a lot to me. That's a great way to honor someone. I also think it'd be another great way to honor someone would be to raise a toast. Like, hey, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for these two people falling in love and dedicating and sacrificing a lot of their lives in order to raise their children and to dedicate their lives to their children, not only their children but also their grandchildren. And so we just want to recognize these two people, Grandma and Grandpa. We love you. We appreciate you. We wouldn't be here without you. Like a quick, simple toast like that. And that will mean the world to them because it's true. And it doesn't get talked about enough. It doesn't get said enough. It could be said every time you came together, and it probably wouldn't be said enough. Just like we do the Pledge of Allegiance all the time. We honor our country in that way, but it doesn't even get enough attention a lot of the times. Our soldiers don't get enough attention. They don't get enough praise and love for the sacrifices that they made for us. But just taking that small little 30 seconds to raise a toast, that small minute to get up and look your grandparents in the eyes, go and shake your grandpa's hand, go and give your grandma a hug, go and respect your elders, go and show them what they mean to you. That can make all the difference. And guess what? Other people are going to see you doing that. And they're going to be like, what? Like, what's he doing? If it's not a normal thing in your family, it's going to be like, what's he doing? And maybe other people will get up and follow along. Okay, so let's get into some more of the nuanced things here, because a lot of people have quarrels with their parents. I don't. Personally, I love my parents. I have a lot of respect and honor for both my parents and my grandparents. Love them all to death. But I could see a point in my life where I was a little bit more rebellious, and I was like, oh man, I have this quarrel, this problem, and I have this perspective. Like, why would I honor them when I'm in this rebellious state? And kind of like I said earlier, right? Like even if, you had a really tough time with your parents or with someone else in your life, like how do you go about honoring them? Why would you even honor them? Do they even deserve it? Well, the one thing I would say about that is that Jesus teaches us through his example that nobody really deserves anything. Nobody really deserves anything, and that's not really the way that we should be going about our life, is thinking about, okay, does this person deserve, does he deserve my respect? Does he deserve whatever? Does he deserve whatever from me? That's not what it's about. That's not what life is about. Life is about you and how you develop your character. It's not about all these other actions and things that other people have done and how you should respond to them, or what's the right way to respond to them. No, it's about who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? If you're Catholic, do you want to be more like Jesus? Well, I'll tell you something about Jesus. Jesus died on the cross. He was brutally murdered and tortured and completely embarrassed, stripped naked and put onto the cross in front of his mother, in front of the people that he loved, in front of the whole community to see. And yet while he was on that cross, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Nobody deserved that. Especially the people who brutally tortured him. They didn't deserve that. Yet Jesus gave them that grace, and he demonstrated his mercy and his grace for people who didn't deserve it. So that's not what it's about. It's not about whether someone deserves your respect or deserves you to honor them. It's about who do you want to be? Do you want to be someone who strives towards virtue or not? Jesus said to pray for your enemies and those who persecute you. And it completely flips our way of thinking on its head. And for me, like if I could try to explain what that means to me, and it's very complex and complicated and not very straightforward, but just for the sake of trying to put some words towards it, it's like when you're going throughout your day and when you're refining your character and trying to become who you want to become, part of it is you want to be a good influence. You want to be a good role model. You want to strive towards virtue. And through that demonstration, you want other people to recognize and see, not because you want approval or acceptance yourself, but you want to influence them in a positive way. You want to pull them up. You want to show them a different way. Because Jesus showed us a different way in that manner. And now we have the opportunity to do that ourselves. We have the opportunity to show mercy, forgiveness, respect, honor, and strive towards virtue just as Jesus demonstrated for us. And so it's about who we want to be. If we want to be that, then great. Then we should strive towards that. But then it's not about, okay, how do we control others and maybe manipulate others to do the same thing. It's more so about them maybe seeing us, maybe recognizing what we're doing, but maybe not. But maybe that just through becoming this person and taking those small little actions, maybe they will see, or maybe it will plant a seed in their mind, and maybe it will bring them closer to this unique gift that I have of having a relationship with Christ, and that's provided me with joy and peace and all the fruits of the Spirit. And maybe this will help them just by, trying to pray and grow in communion to the Lord and trying to do what the Holy Spirit is leading you to do versus doing what you think is right. Because what we learn from Jesus is what you think is right is completely wrong. It's completely off. Everything that we have learned is completely off. It's not right. It's not what's oriented towards the highest good. We know what's oriented towards the highest good. That's God. And God had a son, and his son was named Jesus Christ. And we have some of how Jesus Christ was like when he was here on earth, and he was literally God. He was literally God. So he, as a natural order, showed us through his actions how we should be. And part of that was he wasn't looking for anyone's recognition. He wasn't looking for anyone's approval. He was doing it because it was the right thing to do. And so that's really important. It's really important because, like I said earlier, we have an insatiable desire to be accepted by others, to fit into a group. Because it provides us a sense of comfort and safety and belonging, which are like the fundamental things that we need in order to feel a sense of sanctity as a person. But Jesus says, just do it because it's right. Do it because it's a good thing to do. You don't give out charity because you want other people to see you giving out charity. You don't tithe at church just so people can see you tithing at church. You do it because it's the right thing to do. You don't go to confession so other people see you going to confession and they're like, oh, that's a good Catholic. No, you don't do it for the recognition of other people. You may do it to be a good influence on other people, and that's totally great. That's what Jesus did. I mean, he was a good influence on all of us. He showed us how to live. He showed us the right way to live. And so we can take that Spirit of Christ and show other people how to live. Hopefully. Hopefully we can do some good. Hopefully we can do some of the right things. And hopefully we can embody the Holy Spirit and have a good influence on other people and share the light of Jesus with other people. So, we honor people because it's the right thing to do. We do virtuous things because they're the right thing to do. We don't do them to get approval. We do them even in secret. And by doing them in secret, we can actually start to change our character, because the best way to tell who you are is to audit yourself when you're by yourself. That's who you are. That's who you are. Because when you go out and you engage with other people, oftentimes we change and manipulate our behavior for that insatiable desire to fit in. But when we're alone and there's no one else, that's the true test. That's the true test. And so I want to kind of end off this video here on honor. But honor is truly becoming more and more of a lost art. And if you feel somewhat called after watching this video to demonstrate honor, to be more virtuous, to try and grow in communion with Jesus and with God, to go after a more meaningful and purposeful life where you feel pleased with yourself about how you go about your life, how you treat yourself, how you treat the animals in your life, your family members, your community. Something that you can be not prideful of, but proud of. Something you can be pleased with yourself with, just like God will be pleased with you about these things that you do. If you're kind of feeling that calling and that inkling, I recommend doing some of the things that we talked about today. Just trying them and seeing what happens. And just praying to the Holy Spirit, like, Holy Spirit, if this is something that you're calling me to do, like, reveal my path before me. And maybe the Holy Spirit will lead you to another video, or maybe he'll give you a piece of wisdom. Maybe when you're interacting with your family next time, he'll show up and tell you what you can do now to honor and show love for the people who mean the most to you in your life. So I hope that you got some good value out of this video. We're going to be talking a lot about different virtues and some of these things that are kind of fading away in American culture because they're so important. They're so important. They're the glue that keeps our society together and our families together and our relationships strong. And with skyrocketing divorce rates, with families falling apart, with our country falling apart, with our communities falling apart, these are the things that can bring us back together. So with that being said, we'll see you on the next video.